Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Jeremy Brendel, and today is the first episode in hopefully a lot of episodes in me talking about my weight loss journey and dealing with my mental health and PTSD and kind of, all things related. So, today's kind of like I don't know what you want to call it, just test the waters and see how things go. I'm going to start off by going back to really what caused me to get to the 400-pound mark. It's kind of a substantial number, only because, you know, when I was in my early 20s and going to the doctors and them saying, you should be around 200 pounds, at one point to really look at myself and say, wow, I doubled what I should have been. That was really a big number for me. And really, it started about the age of 25 when I took a job as a correctional officer. And I'm not going to lie and say that when I started that job, I was like an absolute picture of health. I was definitely carrying a few extra pounds, but not anything that I would consider to be, I don't know, overweight or obese. But after a few years of working as a correctional officer, I found my mental health and my physical health really kind of deteriorating fast. And I really, at the time, didn't understand why. And to be honest with you, I really didn't know where to look for help. So I did what a lot of people I think in life did or do, and that is cope. And, working in an environment that was, everybody, hears stories about what it's like to work in a prison. And I can honestly say there were parts of it that were kind of good. I met a lot of great people, made a lot of, relationships that I still think about to this day. I learned a lot about life, but it also took a lot of toll on me as to the way I saw people, the way I saw myself. And that was really, I think, the hardest part. And, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're unhappy or you're uncomfortable, you kind of start looking for, solutions. And for me, it was to distract myself from it. Simply just anything that I could take my mind off of the fact that I didn't like who I was and who I'd become. I didn't want to go to work the next day and spend 8 hours in an environment that I knew was pretty much detrimental to my health. But I kept soldiering on, and I found comfort in food, number one. And it wasn't really that I enjoyed the food, it was the company. It was the time away from home. It was, literally the distraction of being away from everything. So that really kind of started, the downward spiral for me as far as gaining weight. And at a certain point, I kind of just stopped caring because it was like, this is just my life. And working in an environment where if you're a very large, imposing individual, it's kind of a benefit. So there wasn't really any kind of negative, feedback that I was getting. So I just kept eating and being unhappy and spending a lot of money and doing everything I possibly could to avoid, who I was. And there's a lot of things that I've, dealt with internally. Feeling very hypocritical was a big thing for me, knowing that, I'm not someone who actually enjoys drinking very much, but I'm not going to lie and say that I never had a beer and got behind the wheel. So to know that, there's a person that I'm overseeing in a cell that made a mistake that I have already made and I just simply didn't get caught. That just never really sat right with me. And the more time I spent in the prison system, the more I realized how flawed it was. Um, and it was really, really, really hard to just, keep going through the motions. So the distractions got bigger. Um, and over time, I just found myself, at this massive number. And it wasn't really until I took a flight that I realized how large I'd become. You know, I came from a small town, so I really had no, traveling experience. But getting on an airplane and having to ask for a seatbelt extender um, is ultra embarrassing. Having people turn around, to look, who's the very fat person on the plane that can't, buckle up. It's not very comfortable. And, that's just one instance that I had, when I realized, like, wow, I had become very big. And it's hard because when you live in your own skin, every day, you don't realize how much space you take up. I currently still suffer from kind of like body dysmorphia in the sense of I know what it's like to be very large. So now, although I'm in better shape than I was then, I still feel a sense of, space. And if I feel like I gain muscle mass or, whatever, and I feel like I'm larger, it does still kind of freak me out. So, there's a lot of things that I have experienced over time that still haunt me. Um, when you walk around the general public, and I'm heavily tattooed, and I understand that that in itself can get a lot of stares. But when you walk around in the general public and you have children, that really have no filter, point you out consistently, and make comments, over time, it just eats at you, your self confidence, and you just, I don't know. For me, it was just this never ending spell of like everywhere I went, I just felt terrible. Uh, so ultimately, after about 5 years of working in the prison, I was diagnosed with pretty bad PTSD. Um, and really, I'm not going to lie, I did have counseling and it did help. I did try medication. I couldn't stand the way it made me feel. The thought of being on a pill every day that made me feel like I was literally floating through life was just not something I could handle. You know, Fortunately for me, my wife also was not very happy with living in Pennsylvania. And we decided to move to Arizona. And so we did. After 5 years of working in the prison, we packed up everything and left everyone we loved and moved away. And honestly, I thought that when I left Pennsylvania, um, I would be leaving everything behind. You know, Here I am 15 years later, and I've never dealt with those issues, and I never left them behind. It's something that I still deal with today. Um, but in essence, all the things that I experienced in that time made me simply focus on the pleasure of company, food, and really took my focus off of who I was. And that really is what led me to become, 400 pounds. So from there, it was kind of a decision that I had to make to get healthy. And it wasn't really until my wife looked at me one day and said that she loved me and she didn't care what I looked like, but she didn't want me to die. Um, and those words haunted me for a while. After we were here in Phoenix for a little bit, we ended up going to Texas for work. And while we were there, that is when I decided that I was going to get serious about my health. Um, and that's when I discovered Tony Horton and P90X. Uh, That's where I'm going to pick it up next time. That's really where I started my weight loss journey. I'm going to get a lot into the diet and, what I did with P90X, talking about how it was physically impossible at first, getting down to, being able to do the entire program. So, if you liked what you heard here today, please subscribe. I've got a lot more to talk about, and thanks for watching.